Hello and welcome to the Sky Sports Essential Football Podcast. My name's Dan Long and today I'm joined in the studio by former professional footballer Mark Phillips. Mark spent 13 years at Millwall before moving on to Brentford, where he won the League Two title in 2008-09 and later joined Southend. He retired in 2018 after several years in non-league and now runs a successful academy in South East London. In March he received a life-changing ADHD diagnosis and today he joins me in the studio to talk about it, how it's impacted his life, how he feels it's impacted his career in hindsight and how he wants to use it as a force for good. Mark, thanks very much for joining me in the studio today to talk about your story. How's things?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So take me back to the start of this new sort of chapter in your life. How did it come about that you went to get tested for ADHD?
Yeah, well, to be honest, before my diagnosis, ADHD never crossed my mind. Admittedly, I was very kind of stereotypical in my view of what it was in young children or young boys of hyperactivity, which I'm now fully aware it's not. But yeah, like you mentioned, most things that I say today are based on hindsight since my diagnosis 5 months ago, and looking back on things and trying to make sense of my life. In terms of the journey, it probably started when my playing career kind of ended quite long ago now, 6 years. But that's where it became apparent the traits of something going on or some kind of differences really became out. And I just at the time put it down to the broad statement that most professional footballers struggle with the time after their career and how to fill that void. But that didn't fully make sense to me at the time. Equally, a few difficult things happened in my life. My dad passed away suddenly from motor neuron disease, and there's a few challenging things that kind of covered it up as well. And the PFA helped with counselling, which helped and was kind of quite good in the short term, but it didn't really make that longer term difference I was looking for. I just couldn't put my finger on the answer. So that's when I kind of started really looking into things, and it actually come about through my own son's diagnosis himself. So my son was having a tough time at school, and we were having conversations around ADHD, how that might look in my house. And then funny enough, on my phone and social media, on Instagram, and all these things have now been put in front of me about adult ADHD and how that represents. And these kind of things I was seeing just made complete sense to me. They were the most sense I've kind of seen in years. And they were really helpful. Yeah.
As I said in the beginning, and you've just alluded to there, really quite a life-changing diagnosis. Sounds quite dramatic, but it seems to be that way. Can you just describe the sort of feelings of when you got that diagnosis? Did it feel like a massive weight off your shoulders sort of thing?
It did, but there was a few things that kind of didn't make sense up to that kind of point, particularly around my kind of end of my career. I've always been quite an emotional person. I always feel emotions quite intensely ever since young, but obviously in the kind of football world or in the male environment, it's not something that's really seen positively. So I've kind of tried to keep a lid on it, but things I feel passionate about a lot of things. Also learned about kind of the executive function, it's called, which is like your organisational kind of skills, how you can kind of come up with amazing ideas, but actually you can't really complete on any of them because you don't know the step-by-step processes, or you can't get your head around it, or it doesn't make sense to you. But yeah, I've kind of been, just since the diagnosis, been super interested in terms of reading books. I've always bought books, but never, like most people, probably never finished them. Which is, there's plenty of traits which are just normal for everyone. But yeah, I've become hyper focused on learning about my ADHD, what it means, how it's affected me, and really that's where it kind of led to my private assessment. And I'm very fortunate enough to kind of be able to pay for my own diagnosis, and that was amazing. It was a 1 hour kind of interview with someone very close to me, a couple of questionnaires for me, for the person that I know close to me, one for my mum, secondary school reports, which are a real eye-opener because I kind of spin quite positive on situations, and that kind of GCSE years was quite tough reading, where I thought it was a great time at school with my friends playing sport, but actually the teachers were very much talking about kind of not fulfilling potentials, disrespectful and things like that, which I know I'm not, but looking back now, it's how these things had an effect on me over life from them younger years. Yeah, for sure. And that's when I had the 3 hour interview assessment with the doctor, and it was unreal. like coming on to your question, I don't think I can put into words how powerful that kind of 3 hours was. And even to this day, 5 months later, I still feel emotional about talking about it, because it was life changing.
Yeah.
It was like, and when I got them words that I've got, you've definitely got ADHD of the combined type. Yeah, it was floods of tears.
Like you said there, and then from previous conversations with you, you've said it kind of explained a lot. I just wondered what that looked like for you, looking back at your career, what it sort of looked like for you in terms of how it affected things.
Yeah, well, like I said, it was up there with some of the best moments of my life. It was life changing. For me, it was a confirmation that there was a reason why I felt the way I felt and all my struggles for so long. And equally, it was justification that it wasn't my fault, and quite deep, but I wasn't broken, which went through my mind a few times. But it just explained so many different things to me, and it just all made sense now. It all made sense. In regards to kind of my playing career, again, over the last 5 months, I've done so much deciphering and looking back. But it made complete sense to me in terms of, in the diagnosis. It's quite important for the kind of listeners or viewers to understand that it sounds completely obvious, but the lady said to me, Mark, it's obvious why this has all come out after you stop playing, because the high intensity training and intensity of the training matches, things like that, the exercise levels help regulate your emotions, regulate lots of parts of ADHD or neurodivergent kind of traits. Equally, like the structure in your life of the training games, you knew where you were, you're settled, you know the plan, you haven't got to take care of that side of it. So again, that's kind of a normal thing for most of us, that you'd feel more settled. But as a neurodivergent, these things are intensified and times 1,000 kind of thing. But yeah, I always knew that when I played football, you'd forget about everything. And as I've kind of looked back, I now know more focused that was more about my kind of restless mind and the constant kind of thoughts and feelings going on. Actually, that was my break from these things, which I thought everyone had, which I now know since the diagnosis is not the case. In terms of football as well, I had hyper focus. Football is my love. It's my passion. It's everything for me. So that kind of hyper focus on the game and perfecting every little detail and focusing on the kind of knowledge, the kind of tactics, the preparation for games, all of it just was perfect for me as a neurodivergent, and how I think. A couple of other things could be in terms of like maybe a negative side of things is that I now know how much pressure I put on myself through the game. So how much I was kind of motivated by, not fear, but because I was a perfectionist, even the smallest things kind of led to kind of thoughts of that I didn't have a good game, even if I had got a great game. For me, that was the kind of missing piece. And I always said jokes that I don't need a manager to highlight or coach to highlight, even though they always will. Mm-hmm. A player or a neurodivergent player already knows. Yeah. You already knows, and you've already beaten yourself up quite badly about it, which is not good in the longer term of things,
Quite difficult to celebrate your successes as they're happening, sort of thing.
Yeah, and the football world, as we all know, is very much looking forward to the next game, and that kind of with the neurodivergent brain, that it didn't allow me to kind of recognise my success and how well I was doing. So I was always on to the next game, like you said, is a football kind of ethos. But as a neurodivergent, it doesn't allow you to remember your successes. So I was going into each game like a new game, remembering my strengths, but not really fully believing it because of the kind of like all the negative side of the ADHD that wasn't managed at that point. And this is why I'm so passionate about the future and helping others.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had a couple of chances to move away during your time at Mill, didn't you? Can you just sort of run me through those and why they didn't work out? Because they were quite exciting opportunities when you were telling me last time.
Yeah, it's funny enough. When we actually met up and talked, it was probably the only time a penny dropped for me on these kind of things and how it affected my kind of moves in football. We've just finished deadline day, and it's interesting because footballers moving clubs is a normal part of the game. It's a normal part that any kind of human being, any player would feel kind of unsure, worry around the moving themselves. Is this the right move? Their families, they've got upheaval over that. So it's a normal thing, but I think it's important to talk about it's not a comparison kind of thing, but what I'm aware of the levels of kind of how I wasn't comfortable with change that I look back on now. And that's another thing that if you know about this and you see these are things you can manage and you can understand more. But at the time, I've been flown. There was some kind of political stuff going on at Millwall at the time, and a contact kind of had told an SPL team about me and how I was an up-and-coming youngster and doing really well. And flew up there. We kind of did a training session, did a medical and things like that, and then they were really keen on me to sign quick as I can. The change just wasn't feeling right, and I flew home to kind of do some formalities, and in that flight I remember thinking, get me home. Get me home. I'm more comfortable in the surroundings I know, and in hindsight I don't really like regrets, but they had Rangers away the week after and then Celtic away the week after that, so obviously 2 huge games which you just don't know where they could have gone if I'd performed in them games. Not only the unreal experience of playing at them stadiums and the atmosphere and just everything surrounding them kind of games, but equally if I had shined and it was a 2-month loan, who knows where that could have gone in terms of my career, you know.
And how old were you at that point?
I was about 21, 21. And the same with the Belgian team Genk. There was numerous teams up north and stuff that come in for me, but these are 2 main stories. Genk, a colleague of the club, Bob Peters, who I got on really well with, was quite well known in the Belgian national team, and so they approached me to come up and make a move, and at the time I knew nothing about them. I kind of did some research on the internet, and that was the year when they were in the Champions League. Again, that kind of changed that. Am I kind of that self-doubt kind of crept in, and it's another move that who knows what could have happened, but I didn't pursue it, and I felt more comfortable not pursuing it rather than kind of going a little bit further and pursuing it. So these are all things we talked about that might be down to the neurodivergent brain and how they process change. Yeah,
no, absolutely. You say about not having regrets, but looking back, do you wish you had been able to have those opportunities?
Yeah, I really think I would have loved them opportunities, and they were kind of no-brainers, particularly with the first one being a kind of loan. They could have come back and done even better for Millwall. That experience could have rounded me as a player. But yeah, they are regrets, but I always like to look forward and use it for a positive. And that's, again, why I want to kind of go back into the professional clubs and help young players, help players who might not be diagnosed to understand these things, because they can be just managed and optimised, because being a neurodivergent has some brilliant traits.
There's no reason with the correct management that you should be held back, sort of thing, either.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's more that unmanagement of it that affects your life, and that knowledge is just so powerful.
You played in 5 of the top 6 divisions, as we were saying earlier, in English football, which is an impressive feat in itself. I wonder, do you think anything would have been different looking back now? I guess it's a bit of $1 million question, really, but do you think anything would have been different had you been diagnosed earlier in your playing career as opposed to post your playing career? Yeah,
I think I just touched on it there, and why I'm so passionate about using my experiences now as a professional footballer, and that platform that it will give me to help others, and maybe others reach out and get their own diagnosis. It's just all about that knowing and understanding, and how you understand how you think and how your brain works for you, rather than trying to think like others around you and see your differences as a negative. Understanding what motivates you, and actually it's what has allowed me or others to become elite. It's that mindset and that kind of super hyper focus, even down to knowing, like, you're sensitive to rejection, so you find that tougher. So rather than kind of covering it up, maybe learn to manage it. But yeah, there's some hugely positive and unique traits that I believe you can achieve anything as a neurodivergent. But yeah, for me personally, I think I believe, again, I feel weird saying this because, again, what you're kind of taught about being arrogant, things like that, if people know me, I'm the opposite of arrogant. But I really believe when I was younger and then like potential years that I could have made a Premier League defender. I think my attributes as a footballer suited it. But I think I was very rigid and routine led. I know routine and rituals is very much a thing in professional football. I've saw many stories out there of what people have to do and things I've seen in the change room. But for me, I was very rigid in terms of going to bed the night before at certain times. How I what time I had my pre-match food, what time I got up, what time I did this, that, my whole routine, and I think that kind of just puts too much pressure on yourself. It's not coming from a place of positivity and knowing yourself. So for me, every detail had to be perfect, or I'd go into the game already playing catch up. That I hadn't done this right, so this was going to then spill on effect into my game. So yeah, that awareness and the hyper focus that I had, including perfectionism. So that's a part of it for everyone. But I think in neurodivergence, it's just my idea of perfectionism was I'd have a great game, but that, like I said, that one pass that wasn't a millimetre to your right foot for you to allow to take it on, that was in my mind something I'd replay and go over and reflect on. Going onto the pitch, as I got older and past these years, I just think I was kind of motivated by that excitement. I loved being a professional footballer, I loved playing on that stage. But I think my motivator was that kind of fear and worry about a mistake, rather than how I approached it later in my career, where I would watch videos, I'd watch my clips, I'd watch my highlights, and that would allow me to remind myself, because my memory wasn't great, or I was always in the moment, like we talked, looking forward to the next game, so I'd never look back, and that didn't allow me to recognise what a good player I was. So when I started kind of watching videos, it was a reminder the night before a game, and I'd be going into games looking forward to it. I'd be going into games kind of like really looking to perform to the crowd, like a kind of showman or something like that, knowing and feeling confident who I am and what I bring, and that self-belief was so powerful. And it came out in terms of winning Player of the Year, kind of getting to Wembley, playoffs. I even scored 12 goals one year. I think I scored 11 by Christmas. So these things are all stuff I think, I believe that if I'd had an earlier diagnosis, I would have known about myself more, and then kind of allowed that to transform onto the pitch to help me.
Yeah, amazing. That's a really thoughtful justification and answer for sure. Spoken about wanting to help up and coming players, and we'll come to that a little bit more in a few minutes. But is undiagnosed neurodivergence something that you experienced with teammates and people in dressing rooms, without necessarily naming any names? Is it something that you experienced, you could identify to certain people?
Yeah, I believe so. And this is why I'm kind of so passionate about this, because I kind of went through this injustice phase after my diagnosis, that of kind of learning that there's so many people, not just in football, but in the kind of society, that are diagnosed with something going on for them, and it's really affecting their lives negatively. But for me, it was studies that I saw around sports people. There was studies that say up to 50% have got a neurodivergence, undiagnosed at some point, and they were talking about basketball in particular being even higher than that. And that really resonated with me, because I've been in change rooms, I've seen the kind of way people, a lot of footballers are very similar, and I'm not saying that means they're neurodivergent, but there's a lot kind of, we might be watching, and I think football suits neurodivergency traits massively, and we see it every week, don't we? When we that kind of emotional outburst from a certain player, or a player might kind of get a bad decision or something, they really feel injustice, because injustice is a real big thing, they can't let it go. And then the game leads on, and you might see them get sent off, and you kind of like, oh gosh, like, well, how did they do that? And I'm not saying these are kind of reasons, but they're things that I would see week in, week out, that just were not explainable. And then I'd also in change room see the aftermath of the regret, the guilt, the kind of letting the team down and the realisation of what's gone on. So there's a lot of parts of football that suits it, and I think it'd be unfair for me to say that start diagnosing people because I'm the last person to kind of do that. But
sure.
the traits are very apparent in the change room. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah. Okay. So there's, like you say, there's others in the game made it known they're neurodivergent. Encouraging to see more and more people doing it. One example: Wales goalkeeper Safia Middleton Patel spoke to Sky Sports before the Women's Euros earlier this summer about being diagnosed with autistic spectrum disorder. According to the preliminary results of a PFA survey of, I think it was 700 members released earlier this year, 60% of professional footballers who have reported they have certain neurodivergent traits have not disclosed them to their team or club. Let me do that one more time. Shit. Sorry. A lot of words.
Yeah, I'll be struggling. Don't worry about that. Yeah, there's actual tongue twisters in there as well.
According to the preliminary results of a PFA survey of, I think it was around 700 members released earlier this year, 60% of professional footballers who have reported they have certain neurodivergent traits have not disclosed them to their team or club. I wonder, Mark, how do you feel hearing that number? Does it surprise you in any way?
It kind of comes back to where why I decided to go down this route, really, and have become so passionate about it because I was Googling and trying to find out other footballers, and like you said, there was female footballers, there were some footballers abroad, there was a couple of kind of footballers that came up with a diagnosis, but there wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot, and with my knowledge of how many people there are out there that are undiagnosed, that's where I become passionate about. And I saw the PFA just released their first kind of investigation into this, which I was really pleased by. And so it's great time today that they've actually studied it. It doesn't surprise me. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Like I said, it'd be unfair to start throwing numbers around myself, but that kind of is where I'd guess. That's where I'd guess. Just through knowing, and equally, I'm really pleased. It's kind of. It's kind of anonymous as such that these people can be honest about it, and who knows, there might even be more people in that survey that don't want to disclose it, or disclose certain things. But I think it's important that, and for clarification for kind of everyone, because it's quite broad. I hear people chucking, I've got a little bit of ADHD or something. It's quite a common term nowadays. I think we all have. I think we all have got traits. It starts becoming a problem when it's really affecting your life negatively, and that's actually something that you need in your assessment to be diagnosed. It needs to be having an impact on your life in a negative way. So if you've got ADHD and you're absolutely maximising it, then I say my house, you have full respect, So I'm kind of coming out to big up them people and big up the kind of the positives of this, but equally really be aware of the negatives of it. So I'm pleased that, and the PFA are doing really good work. Like I mentioned, I'm working kind of quite closely with them, and they're keeping me up to date with what's going on, and they're doing great work to push kind of the clubs to include diagnosis for players that request them as a kind of a standard, and that kind of goes alongside now with the 60%, because that absolutely backs it up. This is something that needs to be looked at, and I'm really keen to be kind of using my undiagnosed lived experience of the game to work for the PFA and help other players massively.
And how encouraging do you find it that there are players that are happy to make people aware of their diagnosis and things they're going through, but also that the clubs and the PFA are open to that as well? How encouraging is that for you?
It is really encouraging. I've, as we are here today, this is my kind of announcing this publicly. So, but in my kind of walk just everyday life, I've come across a few people that aren't sports people or anything. But when I've shared a couple of stories, nothing too personal or over the top, but the kind of look I get when their face lights up and it's really powerful when they understand someone gets them. I'm even feeling emotions about it now because it's just so helpful for them. That they're seen. They feel like they're seen. So imagine if the PFA clubs can get involved and the amazing sports people and players can feel seen and be themselves rather than what they feel they have to be. imagine what that's going to do to the game of football as a whole, let alone them as an individual helping their team. And I think diversity in football is just pushing the game forward in every type, and this is another thing that needs to be recognised as well, you know.
Amazing. It's great that you feel comfortable enough to come here and talk to us about your diagnosis, and really, really appreciate you coming here today to talk about it. But further to that, I just wondered how this affects you day to day now outside of football. Obviously, you've got your academy, but how does it affect your day to day life? How do you manage it now that you know more about how your brain works and that sort of thing?
It's a process. Diagnosis feels so much optimism. For me personally, I wasn't in a great place, so I did go down the medication route, which again is crazy because it now allowed me to see things that I've never seen in my life, just in normal day life, you know, like feeling happiness, feeling elation and things like that, which were quite difficult to get to. And so it gave me a marker of where it's not something I wanted to learn usually longer term, but that's my personal choice. But it gave me that insight and that kind of, wow. I've even called like a couple of my best friends who were in the Millwall youth together and said, like, when you go out and you like hear a great tune, like, is that how you feel? And he's like, yeah, that's why I go out, Mark. I'm like, man, I only felt it last night for the first time. And I've been into music and DJing since 13 years old and never felt them kind of feelings, you know. But that's all around the kind of dopamine levels and your lack of production as a neurodivergent. But yeah, sorry, we're going to have to come back to the question because this is what I do. When my mind goes one way, I now realise that. So I try to communicate more now. And so if we can go back to the question, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course, 100%. Well, you want me to go say it again?
Yeah. We don't need to cut that either, yeah.
No, cool. Wait, let me go from there. It's great that you feel comfortable, Mark. Comfortable enough to come here and talk to us about your diagnosis and how it's affected you, and really, really appreciate your time. Further to that, I just wondered how this affects you day to day outside of football now. Do you find it easier to manage now you know more about your brain and how it works? Yeah,
I definitely in terms of the way that my brain works, in terms of someone that might be neurotypical works, that I'd be trying to see things other people's way. So I ask a lot more questions now. Communication's a lot better. I'll ask if I don't understand, but equally I'll try to understand the other way. So I don't feel it has to be all about me so much. So I try to understand and the other point of view, because it's almost like we've got the same brains but they're just on different processing units, maybe like an Apple or a kind of Windows kind of system, you know. So they're equally as good, but just in different forms of understanding. So that's a main thing. I've luckily through football, kind of sleep, good food, hydration, exercise is part of my life. So I've now made that kind of priority of my day. That's affected me the most. I've realised how important that is. And equally, I can get overwhelmed. So some tasks when they're big, they might kind of make me like they used to make me like a Kevin and Perry kind of teenager, like this. I now understand that that's kind of the overwhelm. I can't process things. So it's about like kind of stepping back, being more relaxed about it with this new understanding, and that maybe set myself a task or two tasks, whatever it may be, and not overwhelm myself, because I was trying to live that kind of grind, that chase, that constant kind of work, and I was constantly in burnout. My eyes would be watering each day by kind of, and I'd live on coffee, you know, kind of getting myself, which is again a normal thing, but it would then affect my greater kind of mental health and well-being. So there's some things that I've really come to terms with, and knowing what my kind of not only physical load in the day is in terms of tiring myself out physically, but also my mental, emotional kind of load. And sometimes it's okay, just that's enough, you know, like tomorrow's not going to disappear, you know. And I'm in a fortunate position where I'm kind of my own boss, so I can be aware of that. But I'm also done so much more now since my diagnosis, because I understand I can't do everything, and so I'm kind of building teams with other people. I'm bringing people in that excel in that role of admin, or kind of can do the paperwork in terms of solicitor, you know, rather than trying to juggle all the stuff. So it's been really helpful for that, and that's given me real excitement for the future, where I could go, because it's allowed me to step back, and these constant ideas that are going on in terms of building things and helping people, particularly in the football, and now I'm kind of focusing on this kind of neurodivergent side of helping people. It allows me to focus on the ideas and work as a team, which football's a team sport, so it suits me perfectly. So all these things that seem obvious, but but they're only since I've now learning about myself more in the last 5 months.
Do you think it's almost like wiping the slate clean in a way, and having this new lease of life? It's almost a whole new chapter, or the start of the rest of your life, sort of thing.
You definitely, and there's moments when I was 43 years old when I've got diagnosed, so I easily default back to how I was before. I went through a kind of grieving period where it was like I get annoyed that I can't do that kind of grind and I can't keep on going that I want to, but. So it's like a new, like you said, like it's baby steps. It's learning again how to optimize my kind of life and my day to day. What is best for me, and that's not in a selfish way in terms of like what is best for me, but it's what do I need to do today. And part of like what the kind of issues are around school is that the children who are neurodivergent, they are not interested in certain topics, but they still have to do them, and we're not going to go into that. But equally, from my life, knowing that now, I know. Well, my passion is football. I know when something excites me, I'm going to now give that all my energy, and that's what I focus on, doing something that I feel really passionate about, and it's going to make a difference. And this is why I want to do what we're going to come on to, because I recognise through my football academy with children, I love making that difference, seeing them grow, see them kind of improve, see that joy on their faces, and equally, I kind of was lost for a good while, not knowing what was going on with this, and so I want to help other people find their own self and find out what makes them passionate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know I've got written down here, I know you don't want this to stop with just you. It's not all about you, this story. It's your version and your lived experience, but you want to use it as a force for good, don't you? You've got ideas and plans about how you want to help others. I just wondered if you could sort of fill us in on any plans you've got.
Yeah. So yeah, I became kind of hyper focused on this and come to the realization that there's other people out there struggling without a diagnosis. Research, like we talked about research and how many male footballers or footballers in general, not just male but male, it seems to be the stigma is still there around it, and that's why the kind of the questionnaire or the census was done in secret, kind of not knowing who you are. But I really think I can help use my professional background to help raise awareness and break that stigma, because further down the line, I'm getting towards the point now that this needs to be celebrated. Our differences, like kind of diversity in all types, needs to be celebrated, and particularly in sport, what neurodivergence can bring to the game in terms of just so many qualities, So I've initially got the idea that I wanted to create a website, and this website would be to kind of have an information point to direct people with good kind of YouTube channels that I've learned. I had learned books that I found really powerful, professional help, all like a director, and I called that the website is thendfootballer.com, so the neurodivergentfootballer.com, and then I've kind of created also a YouTube channel called the ndfootballer.com, not .com, but neurodiverse footballer, and all socials as well, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all under the name the ND footballer. And with that, I'm kind of hitting a lot of different points where, again, I learned through social media, and these kind of written traits and how I thought and felt really resonated with me, and that was where I've come to. I am today, So that's what I really want to build, is to inform as many people as possible the reality of the condition, because it can be really dark. Like the medical kind of world do not kind of make no bones about it. It can be tough. It can be tough, but I also think it can be a kind of real strength when you accept it eventually, and then and improve your lives. I'll be also kind of reaching out to businesses and government organisations to go into schools, not just assemblies, but run workshops, because I really feel I found that earlier people are diagnosed, the better, because it, again, allows that learning and understanding about themselves and what they need and how they function. So the earlier, better for me. And then I'd like to take it on to work with the PFA or the kind of football league about going into youth teams, going to football clubs again to do talks, and that part of it is really kind of letting players kind of understand about it, but also equally so they can be successful in professional football, but not kind of detract from who they are as a person, which I found I did quite a lot through my career in terms of masking and becoming characters to fit in, rather than celebrating themselves and their individuality, which makes them unique.
Mark, thanks so much for coming in today. It's great to hear your story and your experience. If you didn't catch that, Mark is on social media as the ND footballer. That's the neurodivergent footballer. Some really exciting things to come from Mark. And thanks again for coming in today, Mark. Good luck and keep in touch.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.